You are not broken. You are simply holding words that were never meant to stay. That truth, soft, powerful, and often forgotten, marks the beginning of every healing journey. And in a world obsessed with doing, fixing, and forcing change, it may sound almost too simple to be true. But the way back to yourself doesn't start with another treatment or technique. It begins in the silence between your thoughts, in the language you speak to the mirror, and in the whispers no one else hears. You have not failed at healing. You may have simply been speaking to your body in a voice it never felt safe with. So many of us carry pain, not only in our muscles and bones, but in our sentences. The ones we've rehearsed so often they no longer feel like choices, but facts. I'm always tired. My body never cooperates. I can't handle this anymore. These aren't just complaints. They are declarations. The body doesn't filter them. It doesn't debate them. It receives them like instructions. Somewhere along the way, perhaps when you were young, you started gathering these phrases. Not because they were true, but because someone else said them. Or because pain needed a language, and no one taught you a softer one. A parent said you were too sensitive. A teacher told you to toughen up. A doctor gave you a diagnosis, and you absorbed it like identity. Little by little, the voice inside you learned to echo everything the outside world projected, until it became your own. But what if healing didn't begin with doing more, but with saying less? At least less of what harms you. What if, instead of repeating old stories of suffering, you began to write new ones, sentence by sentence, until your body recognized the shift? There is a story from the life of Maya Angelou, who once said, "Words are things. They get on the walls, they get in your rugs, in your upholstery, in your clothes, and finally into you." She understood something that science is now beginning to confirm, that language is not just sound, it's biology. When we speak words of love, of safety, of kindness, they don't just float into the air. They settle, they root, they become the atmosphere in which the body lives. It's not just metaphor, it's measurable. Neuroscience shows us that the nervous system is always listening, always adapting to perceived signals of safety or threat. That includes tone, intention, and repetition. And this means that every word you say to yourself is either building a climate of repair or reinforcing a cycle of defense. The good news? You can choose a new climate. But this shift doesn't begin with affirmations you don't believe. It begins with something far more honest: awareness. Noticing the way you speak to yourself when no one is watching. Noticing the microaggressions you direct inward. Noticing the silence after a mistake, and how quickly it gets filled with judgment. Healing begins the moment you recognize that your internal monologue is not truth. It's training, and training can change. You might be wondering, can something as simple as a sentence really change a chronic condition, a lifelong belief, a decades-old grief? No, not instantly. But yes, incrementally. Because language is practice, and practice changes patterns. Not through magic, but through momentum. Consider a gardener who tends a piece of dry, depleted land. They don't shout at the soil. They don't accuse the earth of failure. They water, gently, daily, without expecting overnight transformation. They trust the process of renewal. Your healing is no different, and your words are the water. It may begin as simply as saying, "I'm doing the best I can," or "My body is trying to protect me," or "There's more happening than I can see right now." These aren't grand claims. They're invitations. They're signals to the nervous system. It's safe to soften. You're not required to believe fully in these phrases. You're only asked to speak them with sincerity. The belief grows in the saying. The shift builds in the repetition. Just as you once repeated pain until it became your atmosphere, you can now repeat gentleness until it becomes your ground. And this doesn't mean you won't hurt again. It doesn't mean your symptoms will vanish overnight. It means that the space you live inside, internally, becomes kinder, less hostile, more breathable. There is a stillness that returns when you speak without attack. A kind of sacred pause in the body when it no longer feels it has to brace for impact. That stillness is your first sign of healing. Not silence, but safety. Let yourself start here, not with declarations of perfect health, but with declarations of willing presence. I am here, I am listening, I am open to something new. And as you speak these truths, gently and repeatedly, the body begins to hear you differently. Not as a drill sergeant, but as a companion. Not as an enemy, but as a guide. The body has never stopped listening. The question is, what do you want it to hear next? Let that question carry us forward. The body writes what you say. It doesn't use ink, paper, or memory in the traditional sense. Instead, it writes with muscle tension, cortisol levels, breath patterns, and immune responses. It listens to every word you speak, especially the quiet ones, the ones no one else hears. It remembers them. It adapts to them. It builds its entire chemistry around them. You say, "I'm tired," and the nervous system complies. You whisper, "I never get better," and the body reconfigures to reflect it. These aren't poetic metaphors, they're physiological facts. Your body is a living manuscript, and your words are the pen. This truth may feel both empowering and terrifying. Because if your words have shaped your pain, what else have they shaped? What blueprints have you unknowingly handed to your immune system, your gut, your heartbeat? You didn't mean to do this, of course. No one told you language was instruction. No one told you that saying, "I can't," every day was more than a habit. It was cellular programming. You thought you were venting. You thought you were coping. But your body wasn't filtering. It was following. We inherit phrases like "we inherit eye color" or posture. From parents, from culture, from spiritual systems that confuse self-sacrifice with self-rejection. And without realizing it, we begin to memorize pain. Not just in memory, but in physiology. Not just in story, but in tissue. There's a reason why trauma therapists now speak of the body as a storage unit. It keeps the score, yes, but it also keeps the tone of your thoughts, the tone of your voice, the tone of your beliefs. Imagine a child hearing the phrase, "You're too sensitive," over and over. She doesn't just hear the words, she feels them. Her shoulders curl forward, her breath grows shallow, her nervous system learns that emotion is dangerous. Years later, as an adult, every time she feels deeply, her body tenses. Not because something's wrong, but because her cells still echo the old command. Don't feel. It's not safe. The body is loyal. It will organize itself around whatever message it's given most. That's why chronic conditions often carry emotional roots, not as blame, but as accumulated instruction. The story you tell about your body becomes the architecture your body tries to survive within. You might be holding stories like, "I've always had health issues. My body betrays me. I'm not strong like other people." These aren't neutral phrases. They are blueprints. And your biology, faithful, responsive, and deeply impressionable, adapts accordingly. But if you've memorized pain, you can also memorize healing. This is where neuroplasticity becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes a miracle. Your brain can rewire. Your nervous system can unlearn. Your body can rehearse new responses. But the script must change. Begin with a sentence like, "I'm safe now," or "My body knows how to recover," or "I'm learning to feel peace again." Don't wait until you believe it. Speak it with the same frequency you once spoke fear. Speak it softly, but consistently. Speak it the way a pianist practices scales. The body responds not to declarations, but to repetition. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that thought plus emotion creates new wiring. Say, "I'm healing," while feeling grounded, and your biology records it. Not because you forced it, but because you offered it. And you don't need to be perfect. Your nervous system isn't asking for precision. It's asking for partnership. It doesn't need a new vocabulary overnight. It needs a new tone, a new rhythm, a new consistency. When you say, "I'm okay," your body listens to your tone more than your words. When you say, "I'm healing," it listens for your sincerity. And when you say, "I can't go on," it believes you, even if you said it out of habit. So speak gently, not just kindly, gently. Because your cells have been on high alert for far too long. They don't need motivational speeches. They need sanctuary. Think of your voice as the climate of your inner world. When it rains fear, your body bristles. When it shines warmth, your body exhales. And over time, with enough warmth, the frozen parts of you begin to thaw. The ones that have been bracing for years. The ones that stopped expecting kindness. This isn't false positivity. This is biological reality. That your immune system, your hormones, and even your genes respond to tone. Bruce Lipton's research into epigenetics shows us that environment influences gene expression, and your inner language is part of that environment. So if you've been saying, "This is just who I am," maybe it's time to pause and ask, who told you that? And more importantly, do you still agree? Let yourself consider. I am someone who is healing, not someone who will heal, but someone who already is. Someone whose cells are responding to the new script. Someone whose body is paying attention to this moment, not the past. It's okay if this feels unfamiliar. Most healing does at first. Familiarity is not the same as truth. You've been familiar with suffering. That doesn't make it your identity. You've been familiar with shame. That doesn't make it your home. You get to write something new now. One sentence at a time, one breath at a time. And as you do, your body, the ever-loyal scribe, will begin to write it with you. Let this be your next line. There is a kind of pain no scan can measure. It lives not in the tissue, but in the tone. It lingers in the breath that shortens when you're alone, in the fatigue that doesn't lift with sleep, in the tightness that returns even after rest. And more often than we realize, that pain comes not from injury, but from language, the quiet, daily language we use against ourselves. We call it joking, we call it venting. But our body doesn't know the difference between a punchline and a punishment. When you say, "I'm such a mess," your nervous system doesn't laugh. It listens. When you say, "I always ruin everything," your immune system takes note. When you whisper, "I'll never get better," your cells prepare for defeat. And when this becomes routine, repeated, reinforced, even rewarded in the name of humility or realism, it becomes chronic. Not just emotionally, but physically. There's no need to diagnose yourself to see this in action. Just notice the sigh that follows your own criticism, the slump in your shoulders after self-rejection, the way your chest closes when you tell yourself, "I can't." These are not just thoughts. They're physiological instructions. Louise Hay once said that every complaint is a command the body obeys. Not because it wants to suffer, but because it assumes you are the authority. Your voice becomes its compass. So when your inner language is laced with criticism, your body tightens. Not because something is wrong, but because something is familiar. You've learned to tolerate this inner violence, to carry it like background noise, to confuse it with honesty. You might even feel that if you stop criticizing yourself, you'll fall apart, that you'll become lazy or weak or out of control, that your inner scolding is the only thing keeping you afloat. But the truth is, it's what's been holding you underwater. Self-punishment doesn't lead to growth. It leads to shutdown. And your body knows this better than your mind does. Imagine standing beside a sick child and whispering, "You're hopeless. You'll never be strong. You always get sick." You'd never speak that way to someone you love. Yet how often do you say similar things to yourself? What if you began to treat your inner world with the same tenderness you offer others? It starts not with grand affirmations, but with gentle shifts. Instead of, "I'm a disaster," try, "I'm overwhelmed and I'm finding my way." Instead of, "I ruin everything," try, "I've made mistakes and I'm learning." Instead of, "My body is broken," try, "My body has been through a lot and it's still here." Each of these is a micro-healing, a small rewrite, a sentence that bends the story just enough to let light in. And your body, always listening, will notice. You don't have to pretend to be okay. You just have to stop reinforcing harm. Language is not just reflection, it's reinforcement. When you say something enough times, your nervous system adapts to make it feel true. And this is not about blame. It's about restoration. It's about reclaiming your voice as a tool, not a weapon. You were likely taught these patterns, passed down through generations of survival. Cultures that prized stoicism over softness. Schools that rewarded self-correction over self-kindness. Systems that equated shame with discipline. But just because it's learned doesn't mean it's permanent. You can unlearn harshness. You can choose to stop mid-sentence. You can interrupt the script. Say this to yourself now, aloud if you can. "I don't speak to myself that way anymore." Feel what happens in your body when you say that. Notice if your jaw loosens, if your breath returns, if your spine lengthens just a little. That's not imagined. That's repair. That's your body responding to new instructions. Healing isn't about declaring perfection. It's about declaring a truce. You've been at war with yourself long enough. It's time to lay down the arms of harsh words, to stop using your voice as a hammer, to start using it as a balm. The shift doesn't require perfect belief. It only requires willingness. Willingness to try softer, to speak in tones that create trust, not tension. And yes, it will feel awkward at first. Speaking kindly to yourself may feel false, but that's only because it's unfamiliar, not because it's untrue. Familiarity is not truth. It's just repetition. Let your new tone become familiar. Let this be the moment you release the need to improve through insult. Let this be the moment you see language as medicine, not measurement. Let this be the moment you become someone your own body feels safe with. And from that safety, the real healing begins. So as we move forward, hold this. Your voice is not just something you use. It's something you live inside. Choose to make it a home, not a battlefield. Let the next part of the journey begin not with trying harder, but with speaking softer. Somewhere inside you, beneath the layers of noise, doubt, and repetition, lives a voice that was never meant to hurt you. It speaks not with judgment, but with gentleness, not with correction, but with compassion. This is the healing voice, and for many of us, it's gone quiet. Not because it's absent, but because it's been drowned out by a louder, harsher inner narrator. We're taught early on to push through pain, to be strong, to criticize ourselves into growth. We internalize these values so deeply that when we speak to ourselves, we mimic the voice of pressure. We call it motivation. But often, it's just self-surveillance dressed up in productivity. The truth is, growth that starts in fear rarely ends in peace. Your inner voice has power, not because it can control your biology directly, but because it sets the tone of your belief. And belief is the nervous system's compass. When you believe that you are fundamentally failing, your body prepares for failure. When you believe that you are unworthy, your body braces. When you believe you are broken, your cells shut down creative repair. It is no exaggeration to say, the way you speak to yourself is either a wound or a remedy. Think of the voice that often emerges when you're struggling. What's wrong with you? Get over it. Why can't you handle this? You may think these are isolated thoughts, but they carry physical consequences. The tension in your chest, the shallow breath, the racing heart, all of it responds to that tone. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine saying to yourself, "This is hard, and I'm still here." Or, "I don't have to be perfect to be worthy of care." Or even just, "I'm listening." When you speak this way, slowly, sincerely, your body exhale returns. Your jaw unclenches. Your vagus nerve, which governs your rest and restore response, activates. Your entire system receives a new signal: safety. This isn't just emotional comfort, it's biological reprogramming. Joe Dispenza often speaks of thought and feeling creating state. When your inner voice shifts tone, it doesn't just change your mood. It begins to rewire your nervous system. You might remember a time someone spoke to you with tenderness when you expected shame. A time someone stayed with you instead of fixing you. That moment, so rare and quiet, was likely one of the most healing experiences of your life. That's the voice you must learn to offer yourself. Not a cheerleader shouting slogans, but a presence whispering, "I'm not going anywhere." Let me be clear. This isn't easy. If you were raised in an environment that equated softness with weakness, you may resist this tone. If you learn to survive by outperforming your pain, you may not trust stillness. But the body does. The body remembers what safety feels like, even if the mind forgets. So practice. Place your hand over your heart and say, "I'm doing the best I can." Say it again, not from force, but from honesty. Not to convince yourself, but to acknowledge reality. Let your body feel the resonance. It may not land right away. That's okay. Let the unfamiliarity pass. New languages always feel clumsy at first. You've been fluent in criticism. Now it's time to become fluent in care. Over time, this new tone becomes a new identity. Not the person who bullies themselves into change, but the person who holds space for growth. Not the perfectionist, but the partner to your own healing. And slowly, the way you speak begins to reshape the way you live. You say, "I forgive myself," and the tension begins to ease. You say, "I'm allowed to be here," and the anxiety softens. You say, "I don't have to rush," and your breath finds its rhythm again. The healing voice isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It waits. It listens. It speaks only when invited. And when you finally give it the floor, it doesn't try to fix you. It tries to remind you who you were before the world taught you to shout over yourself. This voice can become your default. With practice, it can replace the inner storm with an inner steadiness, a kind of homecoming to your own nervous system. It's not weakness. It's not indulgence. It's biological nourishment. The exact thing your body has been begging for beneath all the tension and fatigue. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You only need to practice a tone of presence, one that says, "You're allowed to rest here. You're allowed to begin again." Let this be the shift, not in thought, but in tone. Let this be the moment you stop correcting and start comforting. Let this be the time you speak not to force, but to soothe. Because when your voice becomes the one that heals instead of harms, your body will finally believe, I'm safe now. And from that place of safety, we step into something even deeper, something that begins with just 2 words. I am. 2 of the smallest words in the English language. And yet, everything that follows them becomes the blueprint for how your body understands who you are. Not I will be, not I hope to become, but I am. The body does not follow effort. It follows identity. And when your identity is wrapped in illness, in failure, in shame, no amount of treatment, effort, or affirmation can override what you deeply believe you are. This isn't self-help jargon, it's biology. The nervous system is constantly interpreting your sense of self, using your thoughts, your tone, and your words as its cues. When you say, I am broken, your body responds accordingly. When you say, I am sick, your cells take that as instruction. So what happens when you say, I am healing, or I am becoming, or I am the medicine? You begin to shift, not just how you feel, but how your body organizes itself around your truth. It's not about pretending. It's not about saying things you don't believe. It's about becoming conscious of the phrases you've repeated so often that they've turned into commands. Commands your body keeps following, whether they serve you or not. Louise Hay taught that the point of power is always in the present moment. And that point of power is activated every time you say, I am. Not as a wish, but as a choice. What you say after those 2 words becomes your emotional signature. It shapes your posture, your breath, your hormone levels. Your nervous system doesn't ask if it's true. It asks how often you've said it. And so many of us are living in identities we never chose. A teacher told you that you weren't smart enough. A doctor told you that you'd never get better. A parent called you difficult. A past version of yourself decided that pain was your destiny. And somewhere along the way, you started repeating those labels. I am too much. I am hard to love. I am anxious. I am not strong like others. These phrases don't just shape your thoughts. They become the atmosphere of your biology, the tone of your healing, the framework your cells interpret as normal. But here's the miracle. What was once spoken in fear can now be rewritten in truth. I am healing. I am learning to trust. I am not the story I was given. I am becoming someone new. These are not slogans. They are structural changes. Every time you say them, sincerely and consistently, your nervous system listens. Your immune system adjusts. Your body reconsiders what is possible. And it's okay if you don't fully believe these statements yet. That's not a problem. Belief is not a prerequisite for healing. Willingness is. You're not required to have faith. You're only asked to begin. Because every time you say, I am peace, you plant a seed. Every time you say, I am the medicine, you rewrite the script. Every time you say, I am no longer who I was when I got hurt, you build a new identity. Not from scratch, but from what's been waiting beneath the pain all along. Think of the body as a loyal animal. It responds to consistency, to tone, to the emotional certainty behind your words. It doesn't need you to fake confidence. It needs you to stop feeding it despair. That's why repeating the identity of the wounded self, no matter how accurate it once felt, keeps you loyal to the wound. And that loyalty delays healing. You are not broken. You are not a diagnosis. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are not the belief someone else gave you in a moment of fear. You are medicine. You are response. You are capacity. You are not becoming something new. You are remembering who you were before the wound took your name. Caroline Myss once said that we do not heal by begging the divine. We heal when we reclaim the power of naming. And that means deciding boldly, quietly, and repeatedly who you are willing to be. Say it aloud now. I am healing. Again. I am healing. Not as a question, not as a wish, as a fact. Place your hand on your chest if you can. Feel the vibration of that truth in your bones. It may tremble. It may resist. That's okay. Let it tremble. Let it resist. Say it again. You are not here to beg your way into wellness. You are here to embody it. You are here to declare a new reality and trust that your biology, your breath, and your cells will follow your lead. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is not denial. This is reclamation. This is re-choosing. You don't have to change it all today. You don't have to force belief into your system. But you can begin. You can say, I no longer agree with the old story. You can say, I am speaking from the version of me that is rising. And when you do, the shift begins. Because your body doesn't need proof. It needs a new signal, a new frequency, a new name. Let that name be spoken. Let your identity no longer be built from trauma, but from truth. Let the next part of this journey show you what happens when pain is no longer your narrator, and I am becomes your compass. Pain isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to speak to you. For most of our lives, we've been taught to silence it, push through it, dull it, deny it, treat it like an enemy to conquer. But what if pain was never the problem? What if pain was the language your body used when all other signals were ignored? Your body doesn't have a voice box. It doesn't hold debates or write essays. It communicates through sensations, tightness, heat, fatigue, inflammation. When it whispers, I'm overwhelmed, and we don't listen, it raises the volume. And when that too is ignored, it begins to shout. In symptoms, in dysfunction, in discomfort that refuses to be numbed. Caroline Myss once said, the body is more honest than the mind. And it's true. The mind rationalizes, avoids, explains away. The body doesn't bother with excuses. It tells the truth, immediately and without filter. Pain is that truth. A stiff neck that returns every week. Perhaps the weight of unsaid boundaries. A stomach that knots in meetings. Maybe the unspoken fear of failure. Exhaustion that lingers despite sleep. Could be the cost of carrying what was never yours. This doesn't mean pain is your fault. It means pain is your guide. Too often we hear the phrase, the body is attacking itself. But what if the body is protecting itself? What if that inflammation, that tension, that persistent ache is not betrayal, but devotion? A devoted system doing everything it can to get your attention, to keep you from the harm of overextension, disconnection, and abandonment. We must stop treating symptoms as enemies. When you fight pain, you lose access to its message. You go to war with your own vessel, and that war always leads to shutdown. So what does listening look like? It starts with a question. Not, how do I get rid of this? But what are you trying to tell me? Not, why is this happening to me? But what truth have I been too afraid to feel? Sometimes, no answer will come right away. That's okay. Pain doesn't demand solutions. It asks for presence. And presence, genuine, non-judging presence, is medicine. Place your hand over the place that hurts. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Say, I'm listening. You don't need to fix anything yet. Just listen. That shift alone, from resistance to relationship, can begin to unwind what's been held too long. You may begin to notice patterns. Your migraines flare when your schedule is overloaded. Your gut responds when your voice is silenced. Your skin reacts when your boundaries are breached. These aren't coincidences, they're cues. Pain is not random. It's a map. And maps are useful only when we stop trying to skip the journey. The goal is not to eliminate all discomfort, but to follow it home. There is a scene in history that illustrates this beautifully. Harriet Tubman, who led countless people to freedom through the Underground Railroad, reportedly followed not logic, but her own inner sensing, what she described as the voice of God. Sometimes that voice would tell her to stop suddenly, veer off the path, turn around. She trusted it, even when it made no sense, and that trust saved lives. Your pain is not divine punishment. It might be divine direction, but if you rush past it, numb it, or shame it, you lose the chance to hear what it's asking for. Often, the message of pain is not dramatic. It's simple. Slow down. Let go. Say no. Rest. Speak. Come back to yourself. These are not just emotional needs. They are biological imperatives. And when we deny them, the cost is not just discomfort. It's disconnection. Disconnection from our body, from our truth, from the very instrument we live inside. This shift, from fearing pain to honoring it, does not happen all at once. It's a daily practice, a relearning of trust, a decision to stop fighting and start asking. And what you'll find, over time, is that pain softens when it's heard. It loosens its grip. It doesn't disappear immediately, but it changes texture. From sharp to informative, from crushing to guiding, from unbearable to illuminating. Because pain is not the end of the story. It's the invitation to rewrite it. So the next time something hurts, try this. Don't rush to fix it. Don't narrate disaster. Don't collapse into fear. Instead, say, I'm here. I'm listening. You no longer have to scream. That moment, quiet, simple, sincere, can mark the beginning of true repair. Not the kind that erases pain, but the kind that understands it, integrates it, moves with it rather than against it. And from this new posture, you'll find that even the loudest pain carries a map, a direction, a message, not of doom, but of return. So let's return now, not just to less pain, but to more presence. Let the next step be guided not by fear, but by dialogue. And let your body know you're finally listening. Your words are not just reflections, they are instructions. Every sentence you speak, whether aloud or inside your head, is a message to your biology. A message that says either prepare for threat or prepare for healing. And your body, faithful and listening, responds accordingly. Most of us were never taught this. We were taught that words express how we feel, but not that they shape how we feel. We were taught that thoughts are mental, language is social, and that healing comes from outside, in pills, plans, or experts. But the truth is, your body is listening to you more than to anyone else. When you say, I can't deal with this, your nervous system tightens, your immune system retreats, your stress hormones rise. When you say, I trust that healing is happening, even if you don't fully believe it yet, your biology begins to reorganize towards safety. Because belief is not binary, it's fluid. It builds with repetition, and repetition is what changes your internal climate. This is what Bruce Lipton found in his research on epigenetics. That gene expression is not static. That your environment, including your emotional environment, determines whether certain genes are activated or silenced, and what creates your emotional environment more than anything else. The language you use with yourself every day. Think of it like this. Your cells are employees. Your words are their instructions. If you keep telling them, "We're under attack, prepare for collapse," they'll respond with inflammation, shutdown, fatigue. But if you say, "It's safe to rest now. It's safe to trust," your biology gets the memo. It switches systems. It stops bracing and starts repairing. And again, this isn't about false positivity. It's about precise language. Not just saying, "I'm fine," but saying, "I feel overwhelmed, and I'm supporting myself through it." Not just declaring, "Everything is great," but gently stating, "I'm learning to be okay, even when things are messy." That difference in tone, your body hears it. It hears the sincerity. It feels the truth. It knows the difference between a command and a comfort. And it responds. Let's look at some common phrases you may have said without noticing their weight. "My body never cooperates." "This always happens to me." "I can't do this anymore." Now, try alternatives that still honor your experience, but invite healing. "My body is asking for more support right now. I've been through this before and I'm learning. This is hard, but I'm not alone." These aren't mantras meant to erase pain. They're invitations. And when spoken consistently, they build new roads in the brain, new reactions in the body. You stop walking the same old path of panic and start creating a trail of gentleness. Think of your nervous system like a thermostat. It adjusts based on the emotional temperature set by your inner dialogue. When you speak in harsh, hopeless terms, the temperature drops. Your body contracts, prepares for survival. When you speak with warmth and clarity, the temperature rises. Your body softens, opens to repair. That's why affirmations work, not as magic words, but as emotional cues. The key is tone, intention, repetition. If you say, "I'm safe," while your voice trembles with disbelief, your body may not buy it. But if you say, "I'm learning to feel safe," it feels honest, doable, grounded, and the more you repeat it, the more your body begins to agree. Try this. The next time you notice a flare-up, whether it's emotional, physical, or energetic, pause and ask, "What do I want my body to believe right now?" Then say it aloud. Whisper it if you need to. Speak slowly. Speak like a parent comforting a frightened child. You might say, "It's safe to rest now. I'm listening to what you need. You don't have to protect me so fiercely. I'm here." These are the sentences that begin to rebuild trust. Bruce Lipton reminds us that you can turn genes on or off with perception. And perception is shaped by language. So the very way you describe your experience can either reinforce a state of illness or activate a state of healing. Let that sink in. You are not powerless inside your body. You are not a victim to random dysfunction. You are a co-creator of the internal environment in which your biology operates. And your words are your most immediate tools. This is not about perfection. You will still have days where fear shouts louder than peace. But you now have a choice: to speak from fear or to speak toward healing. Even a small shift matters. From "Why is this happening?" to "What do I need right now?" From "I can't take this anymore" to "This is a lot, and I'm breathing through it." From "My body is broken" to "My body is doing the best it can with what it's been through." Let these phrases become familiar. Let them become frequent. Let them become the new soil in which your nervous system grows safety. Because your body isn't asking for grand speeches. It's asking for consistency, for clarity, for care. And every time you choose to speak what you want your body to believe, you're not just expressing, you're instructing. You're creating a new internal reality, one that doesn't just hope for healing, but prepares for it. Let your voice become that reality. Let the next chapter begin with your body finally believing the words you whisper. There comes a moment in the healing journey when something shifts, not just inside of you, but around you. The words you've been whispering to yourself start to echo beyond your skin. Your breath deepens, your pace slows, your energy steadies, and people notice. Not because you announce it, but because they feel it. You've spoken to your body differently. You've stopped calling it the enemy. You've created space for softness, for trust, for gentle return. And now, without even trying, you begin to radiate that same safety outward. This is not magic. It's regulation. Joe Dispenza often describes the body as a broadcasting tower, constantly emitting frequency based on your inner state. When your inner state shifts from fear to peace, your presence communicates that without a single word. You become what Caroline Myss calls energetically congruent, where your thoughts, your words, and your tone all align. And in a world full of mixed signals, this congruence feels magnetic. Others lean in, not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Not because you perform peace, but because you are peace. And peace, when embodied, speaks volumes. You may notice that strangers open up to you. Friends confide in you without knowing why. People feel calmer when you walk into the room. This isn't about becoming a healer in the traditional sense. It's about becoming the healing field. The healing field is not a role, it's a resonance. It's what happens when you stop living in internal war. When your voice becomes a sanctuary, your silence becomes sacred, and your gaze offers no threat. You're not trying to fix others. You're simply not feeding chaos anymore. And in doing so, you create a kind of gravity, an invitation for others to drop their armor. But here's the truth. Becoming this kind of presence requires discipline. Not the discipline of striving, the discipline of softness, of not matching the energy of urgency, of not defending your new tone when others mock it, of not explaining your healing to people still married to pain. You begin to walk with a different rhythm, slower, truer. Not because you've given up, but because you've given in to something deeper. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't need to be right. You don't carry guilt when you rest. You simply honor your body's pace and let that pace lead you. The world may not always understand, but your body will. And your body will thank you by softening further, by trusting more, by stabilizing in ways no pill or plan ever could. This is the paradox of healing out loud without shouting. You speak less, but your energy says more. You stop trying to be impressive, and you become impactful. Because people don't remember your words. They remember how they felt in your presence. And when your presence says, "You're safe here," you begin to offer the medicine you've been learning to give yourself. You become a kind of living mirror, not reflecting perfection, but possibility. When someone speaks harshly, you don't respond with force. You respond with stillness. When someone hurries, you model slowness. When someone panics, you ground. And not because you're unaffected, but because you're anchored. You've become fluent in your own nervous system. You've stopped outsourcing safety. You've come home to your voice, your tone, your breath. And now, others feel that home. Even if they don't understand why. This is legacy, not of fame, but of frequency. The legacy of someone who rewrote their name from too much to just enough, from never enough to worthy now. You are no longer driven by the need to prove. You are led by the desire to be present. That's the shift. That's the new center. That's the healing field, and it's contagious. Not in the viral sense, in the vibrational one. Nervous systems regulate one another. That's science. So your calm becomes an offering. Your breath becomes a signal. Your steadiness becomes a permission slip others didn't know they needed. You are the evidence that healing is possible. Not perfect, but possible. Let your walk be slow. Let your tone be clear. Let your silence be full. Let your gaze be soft. Let your voice be a reminder that we don't have to shout to be strong, and we don't have to collapse to be heard. Because when you become the healing field, you don't need applause. You don't even need words. Your body speaks for you, and your body now says, I am peace. I am home. Let the next movement arise from this place, not to serve others out of obligation, but to carry this tone into a world starving for softness. Let your voice become the doorway. You've done the work within. You've softened the voice, calmed the breath, learned to listen when pain speaks. And now, you step back into the world, only to discover that it doesn't speak the same language. Out there, everything moves faster, louder, sharper. The world speaks in urgency, sarcasm, achievement. It tells you to push harder, toughen up, be less emotional. It rewards exhaustion. It dismisses stillness. And suddenly, your gentle tone, so carefully cultivated, begins to tremble again. This is the moment where inner work meets outer resistance. It's one thing to find healing in solitude. It's another to carry that healing into a space that doesn't recognize it, into workplaces where urgency is currency, into families where silence is survival, into conversations where vulnerability still feels like weakness. But here's the truth. Healing that doesn't survive exposure isn't healing. It's rehearsal. To truly heal, your voice must grow roots. Roots that hold steady when others challenge your softness. Roots that remind you, just because the world shouts doesn't mean you have to raise your volume. Caroline Myss teaches that real transformation is relational. It shows itself not when you're alone with your journal, but when you're face to face with someone who doesn't understand your growth, and you still choose to stay kind, still choose to stay grounded, still choose your new tone. And it is a choice, because the world may not applaud your pace. It may call it laziness. It may misunderstand your boundaries as rejection. It may label your calm as passivity. But you know better. You know what it costs to speak harshly to yourself. You know what it costs to betray your nervous system for the comfort of others. So now you must protect your peace, not with walls, but with wisdom. You don't need to justify your healing. You don't need to explain why you're slower, quieter, softer. You only need to remain loyal to your new tone. That loyalty will be tested. Friends may pull you into old patterns. Conversations may bait your defenses. Deadlines may tempt your panic. But you are no longer who you were when you agreed to those dynamics. You're not here to fix everyone. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to stay in integrity with yourself. When someone speaks in sarcasm, you don't need to match it. When someone demands urgency, you can breathe instead of rush. When someone disrespects your boundary, you can walk away without guilt. This isn't weakness. This is spiritual stamina. And yes, there will be moments when you falter. Moments when you slip back into old voices. That's human. But even in those moments, you now have awareness. And awareness is a return path. A signal that says, I left home, but I know how to get back. Let your daily rhythm become your anchor. The small choices, the quiet refusals, the moments when you speak to yourself with care after a hard meeting, the way you exhale before responding to conflict, the permission you give yourself to be misunderstood and still stay kind. This is what it means to hold healing in a world built on self-denial. You don't owe anyone your old self. You don't owe a performance of suffering to be taken seriously. You don't owe productivity as proof that you're better now. You owe yourself protection. You owe yourself congruence. You owe yourself loyalty. Say this quietly to yourself. I don't speak in scarcity anymore. Again, I protect my peace with softness, not force. Again, I belong to my healing, even if no one else understands it. And from that place, you begin to attract those who speak like you. Not with volume, but with depth. Not with control, but with presence. People who no longer rush. People who no longer perform. People who say, I stopped measuring my worth by what I produce. You find each other, not in crowds, but in quiet resonance. And even if you don't find them right away, let your own voice be enough. Let it be your compass when the world tries to pull you off course. Let it remind you that your tone is no longer an echo of pain. It's the expression of your healing. Because out there, the noise may still be loud. But inside you, something has changed. Something has become steady. Something has remembered how to speak like someone who is whole. Let that tone carry you forward, not in defense, but in devotion. You don't need the world to agree. You only need to remain true. There is a kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen. It lives in the quiet discipline of choosing your voice, again and again, even when no one is watching. Even when the old scripts call louder. Even when no one else speaks the language of softness that you've spent so long learning. This is the strength of staying loyal to the new tone. Because healing is not just about transformation. It's about maintenance. It's about consistency. It's about becoming the person who continues to choose peace, even after the novelty wears off, even after the applause fades, even after life tests the very boundaries you built from scratch. And it will test them. You'll be tempted to return to the familiar, to harshness, to rushing, to that old voice that always said, "Not enough yet. Keep going, push through." That voice used to feel like a compass. It used to feel like discipline. But now, you know better. You know that softness is not regression, it's revelation. Still, when life gets loud, when deadlines pile up, when criticism creeps in, when loneliness returns, it's easy to slip, to speak the old way, to abandon the tone that brought you back to life. This is where devotion becomes essential. Devotion isn't glamorous. It's not a viral quote or a highlight reel. It's in the pauses, the intentional breaths, the quiet exit from a conversation that doesn't honor your nervous system. It's in the moment when you're overwhelmed and still choose to say, "I'm safe now. I'm learning to trust this body again." That choice, simple, soft, repeated, builds resilience. And that resilience becomes identity. Louise Hay once said that healing is not about perfection. It's about willingness. Willingness to begin again, even when you thought you were past this part. Willingness to speak kindly, even when everything in you wants to revert. Willingness to be gentle, especially when you feel most undeserving. This is how the tone becomes truth. Through practice, through patience, through protection. You may be the first in your lineage to speak this way. You may come from generations that didn't know how to rest, how to self-soothe, how to stop the cycle of internal violence. You may be learning a language no one ever taught you, and that makes you a pioneer. You are restoring something ancient, something sacred. The right to be kind to yourself. The right to say no more. The right to choose silence over self-betrayal. The right to say, "I don't believe that voice anymore." And when you do that, day after day, your tone becomes your shelter. Not because nothing hard ever happens, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself when it does. Let your daily choices reflect that tone. Drink water like a promise to your cells. Sleep like a prayer to your healing. Speak like someone who knows their voice shapes their future. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth everything. You don't have to shout your healing from the rooftops, but you must guard it from erosion. You must choose it when it's inconvenient. You must protect it like the sacred thing it is, because your voice, when spoken with love, becomes medicine. Not just once, but every time you use it with care. So the next time you're caught in doubt, in noise, in the ache of regression, remember this. You've already proven you can survive the storm. Now prove you can sustain the stillness. You've already reclaimed your name from the grip of shame. Now hold it steady in your chest. You've already softened the voice that once tore you down. Now speak it daily like a vow. I speak with care. I protect my peace. I stay loyal to this new tone. This is not performance. This is preservation. This is not idealism. This is integration. And with every word, every breath, every gentle boundary, you are keeping the promise you made to yourself, that your healing would not just be a season, but a new way of being. Let that promise become your posture. Let it carry you into the next breath. You've walked this far, not through shortcuts, but through shifts. Not by forcing your body into submission, but by inviting it into conversation. Your voice, once harsh, hurried, hesitant, has softened into something sacred. And now, you stand on the edge of something even deeper, becoming a transmitter of that healing. Because healing doesn't end with you. What begins as personal soon becomes relational. Not through effort, but through energy. Not through intention, but through embodiment. When your voice changes, your presence changes. When your presence changes, the room changes. You are no longer just speaking to heal. You are becoming the field where healing happens. And it's not because you're trying to help anyone. It's because you're no longer harming yourself. That absence of inner war creates space, a softness others can feel, even if they don't have words for it. This is how transmission begins, without fanfare, without spotlight. Just you walking into a room, and something unspoken loosens in the air. Someone breathes easier. Someone pauses before rushing. Someone says, "I don't know why, but I feel calm around you." You don't need to fix them. You don't need to offer advice. You simply carry the evidence of what it looks like to speak gently to yourself. And in doing so, you make that possibility real for someone else. This is legacy, not of status, but of tone. There's a story told in silence here, a story of survival turned into stillness, of wounds turned into wisdom, of a nervous system that once lived in chaos, now humming in coherence. Joe Dispenza reminds us that coherence is contagious, that your internal order sends signals to the people around you, that when you're not in defense mode, you invite others to lower their guard, and when you lower your voice, you raise the resonance of the room. You become a tuning fork, not trying to be anything, just being yourself, steady, soft, safe, and yes, you'll still have bad days. Yes, you'll still hear the old voice try to return. But now, you meet it differently. You say, "I remember who I am." You say, "I don't speak that way anymore." You say, "I choose something gentler." And that choosing, daily, deliberately, is what makes you magnetic. Not the words you say, but the way you hold yourself while saying them. The integrity, the congruence, the refusal to collapse into performance, the courage to let others feel you as you are. You don't have to explain your healing. You don't have to translate it. You just have to live it. Let it be in your gaze, in your stillness, in your quiet refusal to engage in panic, in your willingness to sit with discomfort without needing to fix it, in your breath that doesn't rush, in your silence that doesn't shrink. You don't need a platform. You don't need a title. You are the platform. You are the message. And the message is this: that wholeness is possible, that kindness is stronger than control, that peace is not a performance, it's a presence. You've stopped shouting. You've stopped convincing. You've started remembering. And in that remembering, others feel invited to come home to themselves. This is not about being a healer. It's about being healing. The kind of healing that radiates without words. The kind that lingers in the air. The kind that says, you don't have to be perfect here. You're already enough. Let that be the legacy you leave in every room you enter. Let the resonance of your gentleness become your voice, even in silence. Let your life speak for itself. And now, as this journey comes to its final breath, let it not be an end, but an arrival into the space where your voice, your tone, your presence has become your offering to the world. An arrival into the awareness that you were never broken. You were just carrying too many voices that weren't yours. And now, you've remembered your own. Let's close not with a summary, but with a vow, a quiet promise between you and your body. I will speak to you like someone I love. I will not abandon you. I will not rush you. I will not shame you. I will stay. Let this tone live in you now, not just as healing, but as who you are. You have not reached the end. You have arrived at a beginning, one where your voice is no longer a stranger to your own heart, where every word you speak carries not only meaning, but memory. A memory of your return, a memory of your becoming. You've spoken your way back home, not to the place others built for you, but to the space within yourself that always waited, quietly, patiently, for your return. There is no certificate for this kind of healing. No medal, no round of applause. Just a shift. A deep, cellular knowing that your body is no longer afraid of your voice. That your voice is no longer an echo of harm. That you've become a companion to yourself, in tone, in presence, in truth. You don't have to chase wholeness anymore. You are embodying it, one word at a time. This is where the real healing begins. Not in private rituals or whispered mantras, but in the way you show up. In the way you pause before reacting. In the way you refuse to speak cruelly to yourself, even in your most tired moments. In the way you root into your breath instead of running from it. The world may never fully reflect this change. It may still speak in scarcity and speed. But your inner climate has shifted, and that shift cannot be undone. Because you've practiced something that no storm can take away. The sacred act of being gentle, with your thoughts, with your language, with your identity. You are no longer surviving your own mind. You are living in cooperation with it. You are no longer afraid of your own voice. You are allowing it to carry you home. Let this be your quiet revolution. Let your body remember. It is not a battlefield. It is a garden. And your words are the soil, the water, the sun. Speak like someone who knows this now. Speak like someone who refuses to weaponize their own language. Speak like someone who understands that gentleness is not weakness. It is the frequency of deep, lasting power. You don't need to be loud to be strong. You don't need to be certain to be sincere. You don't need to be perfect to be healing. You only need to be willing to listen, to soften, to return. And so you do, again and again, without drama, without force. Only the steady, sacred rhythm of your own presence. This is the healing field, and you are it. Not because you've mastered something, but because you've remembered something. That your body never needed a perfect you. It needed a kind one. Let this tone echo through your life. Let it linger in your silence. Let it ripple through your relationships. Let it shape your legacy. Not through what you say, but through how you say it. And in the end, may the way you speak become the gentlest truth anyone could ever know. That healing was never only in the doing, it was always in the speaking. And more than that, in how you chose to speak when it would have been easier to stay silent. Go forward now, not with noise, but with knowing. Not with pressure, but with presence. Not needing to prove anything, only willing to be the medicine for yourself and for anyone lucky enough to hear the way you speak now.